Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Welcome to Undisputed live from Los Angeles. I'm Jason McIntyre here with my main man, Chris Broussard, and the former NFL star, LeVar Arrington. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Chris.
It's always a pleasure to be on with you guys. Love it. Love it.
Indeed. Let's start by talking about the birthday boy. Tom Brady turns 44 years young today. His Bucs are looking to be the first team since the 04 Patriots to win back-to-back titles, but they'll have their work cut out for them. TB12 appeared to get upset with his teammates at practice over the weekend, slamming his helmet in frustration, punting the ball out of anger, and at one point saying, "Gotta make bleeping plays when you're tired, fellas." LeVar, should Tom Brady's Bucs still be favored to win the Super Bowl?
Absolutely. And even to connect a report like this of Tom Brady having a moment like that, you know, it only furthers the legend of Tom Brady, a guy that's still super motivated, super in tune to wanting to be the best that he can be and wanting his teammates to be the best that he can be. I mean, make no mistake about it. When you think about how Tom Brady came in and impacted this Tampa Bay team, the culture of it, it's amazing. It's absolutely mind-boggling to think that someone could have that type of impact. But when you hear these types of reports, it only confirms what you were thinking, that someone like Tom Brady brings that chip on his shoulder. He brings that energy, that intensity, that passion. You know, he's not complacent. He's not content. He's not comfortable. You know, most successful people, I read a ton of books about successful people in life that have done well and have done really well in business, and there's always this one element that's connected to them not getting complacent, having an intensity and a passion that is very hard to match, the work ethic of it all. And it makes all the sense in the world to know that when you look at Tom Brady, that's what he's bringing to the table. And they have the type of talent. They're returning all of their starters from last season. There's no reason to believe that they shouldn't be the favorite to go into this year. The NFC is for the taking, and the AFC, in my opinion, if you can make it out of the NFC, you probably have a great chance of winning in the AFC, even with knowing that Pat Mahomes and those Kansas City Chiefs are out there on that side.
I'm with LeVar 100%. I mean, they're definitely the favorites in the NFC, and I love what Tom Brady did with the kicking the ball and you know, snapping at his teammates and slamming his helmet. When you're on that football team and you see a 44-year-old guy who's won 7 Super Bowls, still with that type of passion, that type of drive, he's acting like a guy who's never won a ring and who's criticized on shows like this daily because he's never won. When you see that type of motivation, how in the world can you relax? How in the world can you rest on your laurels when you see this guy who's so accomplished, already known as the greatest player to ever play the game or the greatest quarterback? You can't relax. And so that puts everybody on edge and keeps everybody knowing, look, we got to go ahead and repeat. We always talk about getting complacent after winning a Super Bowl. Tom Brady is not going to let that happen to his team. And beyond that, you know, look, obviously he's got everybody's respect on the coaching staff, in the locker room, in the organization. But beyond that, what also enables Brady to do things like this and for it to be positively received is the fact that he's coachable. All right, he'll take criticism himself. We saw last year, everybody was talking about, wow, is Tom Brady, you know, he and Bruce Arians. I mean, Bruce Arians had the audacity to be critical of Tom Brady on a few of his passes. Brady didn't care. Brady was fine with it. Their relationship seems to be great. He's coachable. And when other players see that, when you go off like Brady did yesterday, they understand, look, he's not just the guy on the ivory tower yelling at us. He'll take it himself. And then beyond that, he's self-deprecating too. Like, we all saw the video on his Instagram with Chad Ochocinco a few days ago. and he poked fun at himself. He's trying to improve his Madden ranking in his sprints and 40 time and all that. So he has fun. All of those are the things that make teammates like you. And so when you do have an episode like this, they respond to it the right way. So I think it was great. And I think that's what they needed if they were having a bad practice. But, yeah, LeVar said it. All 22 starters back. They're going to be more confident, have more swag, but yet still be on edge, as I just talked about. They know they can beat everybody in the NFL. I think they're coming out with something to prove. I love that they had everything, right? They got the great receiving core, the great quarterback, the great defense. I love that they added Gio Bernard in the backfield because the one thing they lacked was a pass catcher out of the backfield. Yeah. Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette were great running the football, but they didn't have that receiver out of the backfield for Brady like James White in New England. So that's just one more weapon he's going to have. Look, they averaged 33 points a game over their last 8 wins, including the playoffs. I'm sorry, 33, almost 34 points a game. They are going to roll offensively. And so, yeah, they got to be the favorite.
Yeah, I like really what you said about leadership, Broussard, and Tom Brady. Because yesterday I got crushed on this show by a certain someone named Chris Broussard for going after someone in the NBA for not being a leader. Oh. And what LeVar said about the leadership from Tom Brady really in Tampa is just phenomenal. The guy is at 44, still leading by example. And I want to remind everybody, last year, Tampa was 7-5 at one point, okay? They lost to the Chiefs. It was a national TV game. And if you guys remember closely, the announcer Tony Romo came out and said, you know, they're not doing enough play action. They're not doing enough pre-snap motion. That came from Tom Brady. It's pretty clear Tom Brady was unhappy. There was a tug of war, as Chris said, between Arians and Brady over how to run the offense. And they were struggling. They were 7-5. Remember, these are the guys who lost to the Bears. They lost to the Chiefs. They had some bad losses. And Brady took it upon himself, not to make an issue through the media, but to go through Romo. After that loss to the Chiefs, because of what Brady said to Romo, Romo announced it to everybody, they didn't lose a game. They ran the table, smoked everyone. Their play action numbers went significantly up. They were unstoppable on offense. I personally think there is an undefeated play for Tampa Bay in the regular season this year. Whoa. The division, LeVar, listen, you've seen that division, okay? Who's beating them in that division? And don't tell me the Saints and Jameis Winston. I know they beat them twice last year in the regular season, but after the Bucs got them in the postseason and Drew Brees retired, that division's a wrap. They are going to roll in the division, and the schedule is not that difficult. As Chris said, they added Gio Bernard. The entire defense returns. Listen, when you can draft a right tackle last year, Tristan Wirfs, he plays every snap for drop-back passes and allows 1 sack, you're doing something right. Tampa Bay is really a dominant team, and if you remember closely, Brady tried to go undefeated with Bill Belichick in New England. It got derailed in the Super Bowl. Can you imagine what happens if Brady is able to pull that off in Tampa? I think it's certainly in play. The gamblers agree with me. They are the favorites to come out of the NFC. LeVar, you know the second favorite team to come out of the NFC? Who? The L.A. Rams, who have a new quarterback, right? A new defensive coordinator. Number 3 is Green Bay with dysfunction all over the place. Continuity in Tampa. LeVar, Tampa's got to be the team.
I think Green Bay is going to be an interesting one. I think you got to pay attention to Green Bay. I like the Rams being a pick, even though they don't have a solidified backfield now, losing both 1-2 free agency, 1-2 injury. They have a couple question marks along the front of their offensive line as well. But, you know, one thing, it takes me back to a story. You know, I played against Tom Brady in college, and in fact, Tom Brady was in my draft. I wasn't in his until now. Now, today, I was in Tom Brady's draft, but back then, Tom Brady was in my draft. One thing I can recall about Tom Brady was when I saw him as a player, it was always an even-keel person. It was always somebody who had confidence in what their ability was and their ability to lead. I saw that in college. I didn't see it to the level that I saw it in the pros, but once I was around him in the pros, it was a different dude. His maturity level and his understanding of how this game works and what it takes to be a champion it morphed and it evolved into something much more than any other athlete that well, I've been around and I've experienced spending time with. It's not a surprise. It's not an accident. It's not a mistake when somebody has success over and over and over and over again. So when you look at where Tom Brady is, you heard the comments not too long ago where he said, how do you keep this bleep over bringing me in? And it made a big stir, and everybody wanted to know who it was. It doesn't matter who it was. It doesn't matter. You know what matters is that after all this time, after all of the accomplishments, Tom Brady still is wired in a way where he figures out how to hit himself right where it hurts. He's the only one that can do it. No one else can do it. So all those years ago when a LeVar Arrington goes #2 in the draft and Tom Brady's like, how does he go #2 in the draft? I'm still here. We get to another round. This guy goes, how's he come off the board? You're going to take that bleep over me? Okay. All these years later, after being that guy in the NFL draft, he is still finding a way to have a problem with what somebody has done to him. To me, I love his mentality. If you're a player, you love that mentality. In fact, it's infectious. I'm going to pick up on that mentality. That's the thing about it. Tom Brady can be Tom Brady by himself, and that's going to be a really, really good thing. But when you're Tom Brady and that becomes infectious to other guys, and now they have a chip on their shoulder like, wait, somebody overlooked me the same way. Wait, I could have did more here. I thought that if I did this, but it was really if I did that. It's the clarity that Tom Brady provides to guys that he's around that is why he has the impact on people that he does. I love guys like that. I love coaches like that. One thing about going into the weight room, I love weight coaches that are like that. I don't want to see a weight coach that weighs 500 pounds telling me to do the right form and how to run and how to lift. I don't want to see it. Don't get in my ear with that. You do to draw up what you draw up. Let me go. Give me another guy. All right. When you see a guy that goes through it with you, he'll do the lifts with you, he'll do the weight with you, can be actually stronger than what you are, you respect it differently. Tom Brady's leadership hits differently, and that's why him throwing his helmet down isn't a tantrum. Him kicking the ball isn't him being disrespectful or being a diva. He's setting a tone like we're going to be some bad MFers, and we're going to be bad MFers together, not me being a bad MFer by myself. I think it's dope, and they definitely have the right mindset going into this season
I like
to repeat.
The subtle flex, LeVar, about how you were the #2 overall pick. I had forgotten that, Chris. I don't know if you had as well. But
it's forgettable,
yeah.
You know? It's forgettable.
I had not forgotten that.
Oh, I appreciate that.
That was the LeVar Arrington draft.
Indeed.
It definitely was. But here, look, I know, you know, we went at it yesterday, LeVar, and we will go at it later, I'm sure. But I'm in lockstep with you right now. Tom Brady, remember, he began dropping these hints about next season shortly after they won the Super Bowl. You remember, you start seeing posts of him working out, and he was sending the subtle messages that we're not done. And I think he's always looking for motivation, and he's got plenty. He's got more Super Bowl wins than any team in NFL history, any franchise in NFL history. And so now he's looking for more motivation. He went to a team last year that was 7-9, leads them to the Super Bowl in their first year. J-Mac brought it up. I don't like to think about going undefeated. But is Tom Brady in his mind saying, this is something that I need to do? This is something I haven't done yet? This is something that only one team has done? This is something we should have done back in New England and we let it slip away in the Super Bowl? Remember, now, if they did that this year, he would go 20-0. 20 wins in a season, no losses. That would be incredible. Obviously, he's already solidified as the GOAT, but maybe he's using something like that for motivation. Also, Bill Belichick, and I believe Brady wholeheartedly when he says that he has respect for Belichick, and Belichick is, you know, responsible for so much of his success. That is totally true. But don't you think Brady wants to be known as the guy that was the driving force of that dynasty in New England? There's always the talk. Was it Belichick? Was it Brady? Right now, Brady is looking like it was Brady. off what happened last year. If he goes out this year and wins another Super Bowl, there will be absolutely no doubt. So I think that's driving him as well. And like you said, LeVar, it feeds over into the other players. Look, I expect a big season from Antonio Brown.
I agree.
I really am. I mean, last year he comes in halfway through, right after the suspension, and plays well, really was played well in the playoffs. We haven't seen his name on the news wire for all the wrong reasons or anything like that. Seems like he's been quiet. I'm expecting him to come out and ball.
I agree.
I'm sure he's got another contract in mind, right? He missed out on big money a few years ago. I'm sure he's thinking about another contract. If he has a big year, maybe that could happen for him. So I'm looking for I've been saying that I think it's Kansas City and Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl again in a rematch. And I've been going with Kansas City. But it's going to be tough to go against Tampa Bay because one more form of motivation for Brady. Oh, y'all talking about Pat Mahomes. He's supposed to be, maybe he could be the GOAT one day. He's the best quarterback in the league. I think that motivates him when he hears it about Aaron Rodgers, too. And when they face off, I think he uses that as motivation. So Brady is just a special breed, and he's bringing that culture to Tampa Bay.
So, Chris, for the viewers at home who think me throwing out undefeated is crazy, you guys know I do a lot of gambling stuff for Fox Sports. I've got my midsummer manifesto coming later this week. I just looked at all the gambling lines for Tampa Bay this season. They are favored in every single game except one, a September matchup in L.A. against the Rams. They're currently 1-point underdogs. Folks, they are favored by more than a touchdown in many games this year, okay? The guys in the desert, these smart individuals who look at the numbers historically, all the analytics, Tampa Bay is going to be a juggernaut this year. As LeVar said, this Gio Bernard edition may not look big on paper, right? It's like, Gio Bernard, was he the number 2 guy to mix in Cincinnati? He's not. That's just another weapon at the disposal of Brady. They've got the best receiving core in the league. We talked about the Cowboys yesterday and how great their receivers are. Tampa Bay has better receivers. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. The Tampa Bay tight end, the depth there is incredible. Gronkowski's back. Like, it is going to be a party all season in Tampa. And this undefeated stuff, you guys can scoff at it now. Oh, we've heard that before. I'm just telling you, favorite in every game except the Rams game where they're a 1-point underdog.
They have a strong offensive line too, J-Mac. I think you make some good points. I mean, one thing that people may not be talking about because we get so heavy on Tom Brady is when you look at that defense, bringing back that defense, they have 2 premier middle backers on the inside. You have a premier pass rush on your defensive front. You have young budding talent in the back end of your defense. Their defense, largely in part, was the catalyst of this Tampa Bay team winning the Super Bowl. We may not look at it that way. Definitely. In history, we'll look at it and we'll say this is a Tom Brady-led team. They won the Super Bowl. They had an offense. Their defense won that game. They totally undressed the Kansas City Chiefs. They were able to pressure Patrick Mahomes in a way that we had not seen before. They were able to defense their passing game in a way that we had not seen before. So you got to give a lot of credit to the overall build of this Tampa Bay team. When you say go undefeated for an entire season, you're not talking about just a team that can just beat you on one side and in one phase of the game. You're talking about a team that probably in 3 phases, all 3 phases of the game, offense, defense, and special teams, are able to bring something to the table that actually they're going to always be winning at least 2 phases out of the 3 games. They always say when you're playing in the locker room during the week, when you're preparing, if you can win 2 phases out of the game, then you're going to win the game. If you can win the turnover battle, you generally are going to win the game. So you're looking at a team that is so well put together, and now you're talking about like bringing up AB or bringing up, other guys that may have better seasons than what they did last season. It is the familiarity of one another, but it is also the embracing of the success. Right? They have now all graced the throne of NFL football. So now where do you go from there? How do you challenge yourself more from there? They've already given us indication that they're all in because they're all back. They didn't choose to go to a greener pasture, get a bigger contract. Right. They all chose to come back. That's a pretty scary thing to think that all that talent that they put together in Tampa all came back, which says no egos. Usually that's the biggest thing, Broussard, is how do you deal with the egos, whether it be the ownership, whether it be the front office with GMs and different things like that, whether it's the coaches, whether it's the players. Ultimately, it is the egos that create a toxic culture. It doesn't seem to be any of that. In fact, they seem dialed in.
Well, and look, we've been talking about Brady having this chip on his shoulder, and I think this runs throughout this team. You don't think Ty Bowles has a chip on his shoulder? Great job with that defense, and yet he doesn't get a second chance to be a head coach this offseason. Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, I don't even know if he got an interview for the head coaching job.
And wasn't looking for one.
All right, I'm sure.
And wasn't even looking for one.
I'm sure he's got a chip on his shoulder. So they want to go, I bet they want to go out and put major points up. Bruce Arians said it. He thinks the offense could average 40 points a game. That sounds ridiculous, but I bet you in the back of Byron Leftwich's mind, he's thinking we want to get close to that, and I'm going to show you guys that I deserve to be a head coach down the line. So I think it's rare that you come off a Super Bowl win with a chip on your shoulder and something to prove. But we mentioned it, Bowles, Leftwich, Brady, Antonio Brown. Like, a lot of these dudes have chips on their shoulders, and that should serve them well.
No mercy, and I won't back down.
Russell Westbrook almost landed in L.A. 2 years ago, but not with the Lakers. According to a new report, Russ apparently asked Kawhi Leonard about a Clippers team up 2 years ago. But Kawhi turned around and asked Paul George to join forces instead. Chris, will Westbrook use this as motivation now that he's a Laker?
I'm going to get to Russ, but I got to start with this. Ooh. If this report is true, that is cold-blooded.
Super cold-blooded.
By Kawhi Leonard.
You're right.
Right? Kawhi Leonard is cold-blooded. First, he had LeBron thinking, I'm coming to the Lakers.
Yeah, he did.
And then behind the scenes, he's working on getting Paul George to the Clippers with him. But look, we got to understand this whole scenario. Paul George was all in on staying in Oklahoma City. He signs with them as a free agent, right, in 2018, in the summer of 2018, largely because of Russell Westbrook. He called Russell one of the greatest human beings he's ever been around. He said he thinks he and Russell can win championships. So a year later, Russ calls Kawhi and talks about coming to L.A. with him, and Kawhi turns around and calls Paul George, and the story reported it like this. Kawhi said, I would rather play with you. So part of that conversation apparently was, yo, PG, your homeboy called me and wanted to leave you and team up with me in L.A. But I'd rather play with you. So, I mean, he was so in discord, getting PG upset, right? And bringing him with him to the Clippers. So the dude is cold-blooded. But you know what? When you're talking about competition, when you talk about can he bring the Clippers a championship, you kind of like to see that. So now let me get to Russ. I think Russ is self-motivated. I think Russ is one of the most motivated players that we've seen in the NBA. I mean, how else do you average a triple-double for 4 years? All right, something no one else has done more than once, Oscar Robertson. So he wants to win a championship for himself. And I'm sure there's no place he'd rather do it than with the Lakers in his hometown of L.A. But remember his new teammate, LeBron James, when he went to Miami and went back to visit Cleveland when they played him, what did he say? I got a list. I got a list of people, all right, that when I win this championship, I'm checking them off the list, all right? I think Russ has a list. And it's a long list. I mean, Kevin Durant, I think he's on that list. I mean, they may have patched things up, but the way Durant left him made it look like I can't win with this dude. He's on the list. Damian Lillard, they've gone back and forth verbally. You know, they've had these playoff battles. He's on the list. James Harden, his childhood friend, and they still may be friends, I'm not sure, but it didn't end well for them in Houston, all right? And so now add Kawhi Leonard to the list. Now, obviously, Kawhi's out this year, but it would be great for Russ. Kawhi tried to get the championship in L.A., but Russ storms in and gets it before him. So I just think he's adding Kawhi to the long list of players. Heck, it might be some media members on there who've ripped him and said he can't win. Who knows? But he's adding Kawhi to that long list of people that he wants to prove wrong and he wants to shut up.
He 100% is going to use this as motivation. I mean, nobody likes to think that somebody that they're close with is better than them. You just don't want to. You can't handle it. I recall growing up, my older brother, we're close in age, so we could talk to the same people, hang around the same people. We used to play pickup basketball games. My brother always be the first pick. We played pickup football games. My brother be the first pick. I always went after my older brother. I ain't like it. So I always used to try to outdo my brother. My brother come home with trophies. At one point in time, he probably had 3 trophies to my 1 trophy. I ain't like it. But when I really, really started to dislike it, when it got real, Chris and J-Mac, I was going after the girl. I had the biggest crush of my life. And she was talking to me, but she put me in the friend zone and ends up dating my brother. All right? That's straight motive. Let me tell y'all something. If you want to know a part of why I got up early and worked out hard and ran when nobody was awake and did toe raises and sit-ups and push-ups, I was thinking about being better than my brother. Automatically, I'm getting to the point of where if I don't outdo him, I can't prove to myself how good I really can be or how good I am. I started getting more trophies than my brother. It went from his 3 to my 1 to, well, it wasn't even comparable. Then it turns into, man, this is a habit, and I actually can move away from going after my brother and go after, wait, they say this dude is the best dude in Pittsburgh? Okay, now I'm taking that same mentality, that list you're talking about. Wait, they say he's the best in the state? Okay, he's on my list. Now I'm going to be better than him in the state. Wait, they saying he's the best in this region? Okay, now I'm going after him. I'm going to be better than him, so on and so forth. I ended up being Parade Player of the Year in '99. And let me tell you something. Russell Westbrook is looking at Kawhi Leonard like, you chose, like, all right, so you're saying he's better than me. You want him more than you wanted me. You valued him more than you valued me. If you're telling me right now, the way that Russell Westbrook is wired, that he's not coming to L.A. looking at L.A. like, I'm from here. You're from here. We got history beyond all of this. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for the title. I don't care that you're not playing. I'm going to make sure I look at you and mean mug you, hit you with, you know, the Russell Westbrook thing, like, he going to hit Kawhi Leonard like you ain't even on the court, Kawhi. He's going to be disrespectful to Kawhi Leonard. I like it. I think it sets up for a great addition to the rivalry. This certainly will be a major motivation to him, that idea that Kawhi wanted Paul George, somebody better than him, on the same team as him after he reached out and tried to, like, create the communication and the relationship. Absolutely, J-Mac.
Definitely one of the spiciest stories of the offseason. And think about it, though. Internal motivation is really one of the most important things you can have in life if you want to be good at anything, like LeVar or myself or maybe Chris Broussard as well. But I do want to focus, Chris, on something you said about Russ. You know, it got me thinking. He's kind of always the bridesmaid, never the bride, right? Nobody wants to stay with this guy. Kevin Durant, he bailed, okay? Paul George, we just heard the story. I'm out of here. Even, like you said, the childhood friend in James Harden. Let's team up in Houston, and James Harden's like, I'm out of here. No, this is not working. Like, at some point, does Russell Westbrook have the internal motivation to say, you know what, maybe I need to change something? Or I mean,
maybe I'm the problem.
Maybe I'm the problem. And again, I'm not saying he's a problem because he's averaged a triple-double, what, 3 out of the last 4 years, maybe 4 out of 5. But at some point, he's got to do something about his game. Like, I love the ferocity that he plays with and the intensity on the court. But, Chris, if Russell Westbrook is not in the gym with Ben Simmons shooting three-pointers all summer, I don't really want to hear about the concerns that the Lakers can't shoot the basketball. We'll talk about who they got in free agency later. But seriously, Russ can have all the internal motivation he wants. Chris, it is not going to happen in the playoffs for the Lakers if he can't make jump shots. And for the last, since Kevin Durant left him, he has not been able to make threes in the postseason. I know he's a great player. I'm excited for this formation with the Lakers. They're going to be awesome in the West, probably the #1 seed. But, Chris, we zoom out, big picture. He has to make jumpers. And we can talk about the motivation to go back at Kawhi. If he can't make threes, all this doesn't matter.
Well, look, yeah, I'm skeptical about him improving his jump shot. But I can never say never, because a guy whose jumper was more broken than Russ's, Jason Kidd, he became a very good three-point shooter later in his career. So it is possible. I'm sure Russ has been working on it, but he could probably improve it a little bit. But here's where, I mean, I'm not counting on him coming in next year and being a very good shooter. And I don't think the Lakers are either. But here's where he can improve and change his game a little bit, J-Mac. He can move more without the ball. Russell Westbrook would be a terror, flash into the paint, just moving constantly without the ball, because he can get a lot of shots and buckets in the paint if he moves without the rock. We know LeBron James is one of the best passers in basketball. So LeBron will draw double teams, AD will draw double teams, and LeBron certainly will be able to find Russell for easy buckets if he's moving without the basketball. And if you have the floor space with two other shooters, then it's all the more that it'll work. So that's where I would like to see Russ change his game a little bit or add to his game, because I mean, I certainly don't think he's coming back this season as much of a jump shooter. It's going to have to be changes in other ways.
I'll leave it here with this. Russ coming back to L.A., he still has yet to win a championship. Kawhi Leonard, he got his championship. You took Paul George over Russ wanting to come, but Paul George still doesn't have a championship either. Both of them are still on the quest for some type of validation, right? I would have to say validation is the key. Even Russ getting MVP, even Russ getting these triple doubles, he has played at an amazing level, but yet has not been able to get that elusive championship. You look at KD, we mentioned KD, he leaves, he's not, he's not winning with Russ. He goes and gets championships. And you're looking at a circumstance and a situation where Russell Westbrook's motivation 100% has to be for him to build a narrative and a storyline that will ultimately overcome the detractors of whatever it is Russell Westbrook, right? Because people love to criticize Russ for numerous things.
Well, he does open himself up, LeVar.
Whether warranted or not, when you have no championships to go with your resume, being the way Russell Wilson is, at times you can call it abrasive. It could be intrusive. It can be, dismissive. When you're that type of person without the results, you got to get the results. Or think about this. Charles was the same type of player, right? Maybe people don't remember Charles Barkley as a player, but Charles Barkley largely in part had almost the same type of reputation. And when Charles Barkley transitioned out of the game, we enjoyed hearing his commentary for what he was when he was a player, but we always look at it from the standpoint of that abrasiveness, I'm dismissive, I don't care. It works in media now, but Charles, you didn't get a championship. That ultimately, right now, is Russell Westbrook's, that's his legacy right now. It's a big deal to him to get something here in L.A.
I don't know if it was Chris or LeVar who mentioned, the list, okay? It's fine to have that, the mental list. I know, LeVar, you said, okay. So putting pen to paper and having a list is a little sociopathic, but we know the greats in sports. Tom Brady can memorize everybody who was drafted ahead of him that was a quarterback. Michael Jordan famously, had a mental list. But The difference is Michael Jordan put in the work. When the Pistons were kicking his butt every year in the playoffs, beating him up, what did he do? We saw it in Last Dance. He went in the gym and got stronger so he wouldn't get bodied in the lane as easily by the bad boys, okay? Chris, I'm not trying to hammer it home. Russ can have all the lists he wants, okay? If he's not in the gym improving his weakness, the three-point shooting, and as you said, moving off the ball, it ain't going to matter. It's just not going to matter when the chips are down. You can have all the lists you want. LeVar said he was putting in the work in the offseason so he could overcome these guys on the high school lists. Chris, if he's not putting in the work in the gym, shooting the basketball, the way Ben Simmons needs to get his butt in the gym and shoot the basketball, it ain't going to matter.
J-Mac, I'm shocked that you think Russell Westbrook might come back and shoot 37% from three next year.
He has to.
I mean, there's no chance. There's no chance. And I admit that is a challenge. I've talked about it. The fact that they're big three, only LeBron is a good shooter. The other two aren't good
what about
shooters.
Lonzo Ball,
That's
Chris?
an issue. That's
Lonzo
a problem.
Ball,
But
Lonzo
that's
Ball could
not
not
about
shoot.
to...
And then he got in the gym and he had his best year, and now he's making $21 million a year.
Lonzo Ball hasn't played 12, 13 years in the league. Russell Westbrook largely is what he is. All right? And so I talked about Jason Kidd doing it later in his career, and maybe Westbrook later can do it. I just don't see it. And so what they're going to have to do is surround those guys with shooters, and then Westbrook, when he gets the ball on the wing, don't settle for the three. Drive in and score in the paint or take a mid-range jump
Chris,
shot.
are you saying...
That's what they got to do. But let me...
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, so are you saying he's going to be Allen Iverson? That's what Allen Iverson was, a guy who drive in the lane, take a pounding, get up, and keep scoring.
He's not going to come back next year as a great shooter. Or as a good shooter.
It's not
Westbrook,
good.
I do want to say this. And Westbrook has his detractors. One of them, J-Mac, is right here with us. All right. But if he wins a championship, and I'm assuming he plays a big role in winning the championship. If they win a championship and he's a role player, he's a bit player, he's averaging 13 points a game and not playing, as many minutes down the stretch, that doesn't help him that much. But if he wins a championship as part of a legit big three, and he is valuable, and you see his contributions, there can be no detractors. All right, this dude has accomplished everything individually. Got the MVP award. 4 times an average of triple-double, which no one in the history of basketball has done. 9-time All-NBA. And the winning, I know he hasn't won a championship, but the notion that he can't win at all is overstated. He's been to the NBA Finals. He's played in 4 conference finals. He has won more than Steve Nash. And Steve Nash had great teams, too. Amari Stoudemire, Joe Johnson, Sean Marion. Westbrook has won more than Nash. So I'm just saying he's not this loser who just is, there's no way you can win big with him.
He just hasn't won it all.
A championship.
Chris, wait a sec. You just said if he scores 13
and if he
points
wins
a game.
it all, he's set.
Yes, that's what he's searching
whether
for.
he scores 13 points a game or 21 a game in the finals, a ring is a ring is a ring. Okay, Chris Bosh was putting up big numbers in Toronto, goes to Miami, wins a ring. It's a ring. It doesn't matter if Russ wins a ring. That's all. He just needs a championship.
Does Gary Payton's ring change his legacy?
He won a championship. He's got a ring.
Alonzo Mourning's ring.
You don't think guys without a ring? You don't think Charles
doesn't
Barkley
change his legacy?
Oh, come on, Chris.
It's nice, but it's different when you're the driver. Barkley always says.
It is different when you're the driver.
Well, you're the Finals MVP, got it, or you're a guy on the team that won a ring.
The bus.
Yeah, okay. All right, moving on. Lonzo Ball is headed to the Chicago Bulls after agreeing to a new 4-year deal in a sign-and-trade with New Orleans. The Pelicans replaced Lonzo by adding Devontae Graham from the Charlotte Hornets. But their free agency has lacked any big-time moves that would appear to elevate Zion Williamson to the next level. Chris, oh boy, will New Orleans regret sending away Zion's running mate?
Well, let me start this off by telling you what Zion said in May. Myself, Brandon Ingram, and Lonzo have a great relationship. I hope he stays. All right? I would want him back. That is what Zion Williamson said. Now, it is hard to imagine that David Griffin, the GM for the Pelicans, made this move, let Lonzo go or traded him without talking to Zion Williamson about it. All right? But David Griffin is also the guy that said he was miserable in Cleveland because essentially you had to answer to LeBron James and you couldn't build it your way, right? So I don't know if Griff consulted with Zion or not. He should have, because remember, I mentioned the quote in May. In June, The Athletic had a story saying Zion and his family members were unhappy with the Pelicans and concerned about the direction of the organization. So if Zion was not consulted on this move and didn't give his approval, I think they will regret it. You know, unless they signed Devontae Graham, and I think he's a good player. I think he's more of a backup on a really good team. He's a three-point specialist. But unless they have a major jump without Lonzo Ball, then they could end up regretting this, because the bottom line is this about Zion. So if Zion doesn't like this move, then they're going to regret it. Now, what is Lonzo as a player? I don't think, he doesn't look like he's going to be a perennial all-star. But I do think he's a very solid player. I think he's a good pro. Last year averaged almost 15 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds a game. He has shown and proven that he's got a work ethic, right? 38% from 3 the last 2 years. A guy that couldn't hit the side of the backboard in his first 2 seasons with the Lakers. All right, and then he improved from a 41%, 42% foul shooter his first 2 years in the league to 78% last year. I mean, the dude has been in the gym working on his game, so I give him credit. He's a very good defender. I thought he was a good fit with Zion. They clearly didn't have any use for him in New Orleans, because last year, Stan Van Gundy took the ball out of his hands and put it in Zion's hands for half the game.
Yeah, he did.
So I'm not, they just totally fell out of love with Lonzo Ball. And I do think he's going to be a productive player in this league. I think he's a good fit with Zach LaVine and Nick Vucevic in Chicago. I know they're young. I'm not saying they're going to have a great season, but he's a solid player. And it really all depends on Zion. If Zion doesn't like it, and if they don't have a significant jump in wins, then they'll probably regret this move.
I'm going to piggyback off of that, Chris, and I'm basically going to say this. I don't think that they got better or worse letting Lonzo go. I really don't. I don't think that that's a foregone conclusion. I certainly don't think they got better in acquisition, but I don't know that they got worse letting him go. So now the question for me becomes, is it the chemistry that you have disrupted? If you've disrupted chemistry and belief and trust, because what happens in the league so often, I can recall my rookie year, you know, I used to talk to Darryl Green and a couple other guys, Bruce Smith, and they would always talk to me about you're a high draft pick. You got to put in your work. You got to put in your time, but you also got to stay focused, because relationships come and go in the National Football League. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, they literally come and go. I could be sitting with my locker mate today, and then tomorrow he's walking upstairs taking his playbook and he's being released. He's going somewhere else. That became very prominent early in my career. So what I learned very quickly was I stopped building relationships. I stopped building true relationships with my teammates, because it was very painful when they left. You know, they be getting the pink slip. They looking at me as they walking out the door. I'm looking at them. We like, Mackie, dad, like, keep my brother away from me. Mac, like, I got tired of having that, right? I did not want to have color purple moments every single day in the locker room. And so when you think about what does that mean chemistry-wise, well, maybe it doesn't seem like much, but now as an older man that is a coach that believes in looking at what examining the chemistry between players and coaches, if you start eroding the trust and the chemistry and the beliefs like we were talking about early on with Tom Brady in Tampa, you take away something that has to be evident and present to have success. And to me, if I don't have an accountability for my fellow man, that's my teammate that I'm in the trenches with, how are we going to play at our top level? How are we going to be able to win the big games? How are we going to be able to make it through the adversity? So if you're putting Lonzo in, well, Lonzo's a non-factor now in this equation, but if you're putting Zion and other guys on this Pelicans team in a situation where the accountability level can't be built, if the cords and the strings of the relationship cannot grow and grow stronger, because I think Lonzo in with the Pelicans could have possibly evolved and developed into an all-star caliber player. Maybe it was just going to take a little longer, but now you're not going to know it. And then what type of impact does that have on the Pelicans team in terms of if you're going to get rid of guys like Lonzo, who could possibly be a core guy for our team, who else is next? Yeah. What else is next? And if we're not improving our team with the move definitively, then why did we even do it in the first place? And that becomes a major question and a possibility of development for Zion.
Yeah. Oh, boy. This is such a fun topic. I could unload on everyone in that wretched organization.
Hey.
I don't know what the Pelicans are doing. First of all, you guys need to know this. Their owner has never paid the luxury tax. They basically just got cheap. They said, oh, Lonzo wants 21 mil? Well, we're not touching that. Well, you downgraded to Devontae Graham. And Chris was nice and said he's I think, a solid player, a bit of a chucker, 37% from deep, but not efficient at all, is not an assist guy, is not very good defensively. There's a reason he was expendable in Charlotte, because LaMelo Ball was significantly better than him. That being said, David Griffin is one of the big problems there. He has screwed up Zion, and ultimately, David Griffin is going to end up driving Zion to the New York Knicks, where he'll be playing for my Knicks in probably 2 or 3 years. Because David Griffin, every night he goes to bed cuddling with all the lottery picks he got from the Lakers. Oh, I love you, lottery picks. We've got so many future draft picks. When in reality, you look at the product on the floor, and as Zion's family said, that Chris articulated well, they're not happy with it, okay? This is not even a playoff team. Imagine Zion, LeVar, looking at Ja Morant get to the playoffs already.
Yeah, and looking
Trey Young,
good.
Trey Young getting to the playoffs that quickly.
And looking good.
Luka Doncic, like, Zion's like...
And looking good.
What do we have here? What am I doing? And, and listen, I know David Griffin is protected in the media because, Chris, you've covered the league for 25 years. You know this. These guys who go to TV from being the GM, they cuddle up with all the reporters, and no reporters are critical of them. Well, I'm going to be critical of him. I'm not texting David Griffin. I don't care. All he's done is made bad decisions. Getting Zion Stan Van Gundy. Bro, they fired the guy in 9 months. That was a complete disaster. David Griffin, oh, let's bring in Steven Adams. Let's bring in Adams and put him next to Zion. Oh, that was a train wreck, and we gave him a lot of money. This is a dumpster fire of a franchise, and I feel terrible for Zion Williamson because we're wasting some of the best years of one of the quality young players. Chris, the guy shot 61% from the field. He's doing Shaq-like numbers in the paint, and that's not an exaggeration. Nobody has scored in the paint this young in their career since Shaq. That's what Zion's doing, 27 a night, and it's being wasted. I'm just frustrated for Zion, but the good news is my Knicks, because I was born in New York, they're going to be getting Zion in a couple years, and it'll be great.
Well, look, slow down on that, J-Mac. Look, it's possible. They got Worldwide West there. Leon Rose has done a good job. Scott Perry's still in that front office. It's possible. But they also were going to get LeBron, right? They also were going to get KD, right? So let's slow down a little bit. Maybe it'll happen. It'd be nice. But maybe things will work out in New Orleans. I will say this. I thought Lonzo was a good fit there. All right? Because you've got a guy in Zion who can run the floor, who's an interior player, and Lonzo as a pass-first point guard, I would have thought that would have been perfect, all right? And then you've got Brandon Ingram, a guy who likes to have the ball in his hands, and Lonzo's a guy that is a ball mover, okay? Lonzo doesn't have to have the ball in his hands all the time. I would have thought that would have been a nice fit with Ingram. And then when Lonzo adds the shot, he adds a three-point shot, so he actually can be a spot-up shooter. I would have thought that he would have been a good fit. And J-Mac, you might be right in that it might boil down to money. Because obviously B.I. is paid. And then they want to pay, Zion's going to get paid, assuming he wants to stay. And maybe they just didn't want to give Lonzo, this isn't a max deal, but maybe they didn't even want to give him the $21 million a year. But if it came down to that, then they've made a huge mistake. And I'm telling you, if they lose Zion Williamson, and I'm a Louisiana boy, I'm a Pelican. I don't know if y'all know, I was born in Baton Rouge, all right? My parents met and went to school in New Orleans, all right? I would hate to see that franchise fold up. But if they lose Zion, what are you going to, like, how is that going to work there? If they had Anthony Davis, lost him. If they get Zion and lose him, then what in the world is going on? How are they going to make it work? So they got to figure this out.
Is there a scripture that goes along with this, Chris Broussard? Is there a scripture that goes with this? Does one come to mind? Because I don't know that one comes to mind for me.
No scripture.
No scriptures come to mind when it comes to this one.
Wasn't Chris Paul in New Orleans back in the day, too?
I just hope Griff consulted. I hope Griff consulted Zion. I really do. I hope he talked to Zion before he made this move. Because if he didn't, and if Zion wasn't lying through his teeth in May, then this probably isn't.
Let's remember, guys, that the young players run this league. Trey Young did not get along with his coach. They fire him. Conference finals. Luka Doncic and Carlisle butted heads. You know, who's winning that battle? Zion Williamson should be winning every battle in New Orleans. You have to move heaven and earth to keep that guy in New Orleans. And like Chris said, that franchise could be on the move. It's such a disaster.
No mercy.
Carson Wentz is set to miss 5 to 12 weeks with foot surgery. And the Colts are left with major questions at quarterback with unproven Jacob Eason set to take the reins under center. Many are expecting Indy to take a look at the market for a possible upgrade. Names like Jimmy Garoppolo, Gardner Minshew, even Wentz's former backup and Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles. All right, LeVar Arrington, what should the Colts do to fill in for Carson Wentz?
It's a sticky one, guys. Like, this is like one of the worst possible scenarios that a team could have play out, because you're in that space where it's actually early enough to get somebody who can fill in the position well enough, but it's too late in coming out of the offseason and getting into the season to say we're going to get somebody in here that can actually help immediately. That's out there. So, I mean, if I'm being realistic and I'm being honest, I got to call Phillip Rivers.
Wow.
I got to call Phillip Rivers because he is the one I had success with. I got to hope and pray, cross my fingers, my toes, my toenails, pray to the football gods, lowercase g, and hope that he's in good enough condition, shape, mentally and physically to actually think about it and try to give it a go. Otherwise, I don't know. What, do you go to Mitch, maybe it's Trubisky, I don't know. But do you go to, what was the quarterback, the backup, that Jacoby? Do you try to find what Jacoby's got going on? Like, what?
Right.
I just think that they're in a very, very, this is a compromising position. But with that being said, you got to know that Carson Wentz could come up injured. And you should have already had a plan in place for if this doesn't go the way that we wanted it to go, what direction do we go in? So it's got to be the next man up. But if the next man up isn't good enough in your camp and in your ranks, and you're thinking to yourself, we're losing an opportunity by not having a quarterback that can lead us better than what we expected with Carson Wentz being the starter, I would say you got to give Phillip Rivers a call and see where he's at and what he's got going on.
Well, let me start by saying this. It can't be Nick Foles. All right, we have to put that to bed. All right, it cannot be Nick Foles. If the Indianapolis Colts want to get anything in the future out of Carson Wentz, then they cannot bring Nick Foles to that team. And I don't know that they have a bad relationship or anything.
He might jump,
but yeah, we were talking about this on our radio show last night, The Odd Couple, and one of the callers had a great analogy. He said that would be like having a guy work with the guy that cheated on his wife with him. You know, I mean, you cannot, there is no way this could work. All right, Nick Foles is the guy that took Carson Wentz's team, won a Super Bowl.
Got a
and
statue.
Then I hate to put it this way because obviously Wentz was on that team, got a ring, but it pretty much, it derailed his career. Let's put it that way. And a lot of it was mental in his mind, and I get it. So they cannot bring Nick Foles. On top of that, Nick Foles has had chance after chance, opportunity after opportunity to be a starter, and he's proven that he's not. Nick Foles is the guy that you bring in when all the chips are down, when your back's against the wall, when nobody expects anything, right? When anything you give them positive is gravy. In those situations, Nick Foles can get it done. But when you expect something, you put the team and the franchise in his hands, he just doesn't get it done. So I don't think they should be considering Nick Foles. You mentioned Jacoby Brissett. Yeah, I would be talking to Miami about, maybe do we bring him back? Marcus Mariota with the Raiders, do they try to trade for him? I think you got to hope that Carson Wentz can come back at some point in, relatively early in this season, and that he can play. But I would give him this season. And if he comes back soon, and if he struggles or he can't stay healthy again, then you may just have to say, okay, we can't trust this guy. We got to look for a real quarterback for the future. But if not, if he play, I wouldn't give up on him this year. I'd let him have this season, assuming he can come back. And then, guys, let me throw this out, because the reports are that Trey Lance is looking dynamic in the 49ers.
I know what you're about to do.
We know that if that's the case, Jimmy G, Garoppolo will become, probably not soon, but next year, Garoppolo could be available. So you got to look at him. Maybe is Aaron Rodgers available? Ride it out with Wentz this year, or Brissett, some backup, and then next season you look for your quarterback of the future if Wentz struggles or gets hurt again. Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo, something like that.
It's not often that I'm totally surprised on this show. We've been doing it, 2 to 3 years together now, guys, and I feel like I know them well. LeVar with probably one of the biggest shockers. I love the Phillip Rivers return take. Now, I think he's coaching high school football somewhere, so he may not exactly be in shape. I have a counter to that, and I would just say, do nothing. Do not go and overpay for somebody when you're trying to make a trade from a position of weakness. Everybody knows that Chris Ballard needs a quarterback, so you're going to ask for the world. And Chris Ballard has drafted way too well. I was just looking at the Colts draft picks for the last 3 or 4 years. He hits home runs every year in the draft. You do not want to give up a pick to rent a quarterback for, 3 weeks. Have you guys looked at the early schedule? The Colts have the toughest September schedule in the NFL. 3 of their first 4 opponents were in the playoffs last year, okay? 3 of their first 5 games on the road back to back to back. So they're going to struggle out of the gate, whether it's Jacob Eason, Carson Wentz, or whatever quarterback you want to overpay for. I think Ballard's smart move is, hey, we drafted Jacob Eason in the 4th round last year. Let's see what the guy's got. We're going to throw him right into the fire. It's a tough schedule early. You got to face defenses like Baltimore. Yikes. But I think this is the move. You just stay put. And a quick final word on Carson Wentz, okay? At some point, LeVar, we have to look ourselves in the mirror and say, you know what? That Carson Wentz near MVP season, that was an outlier. That's not who the guy is. He's hurt every year. No, LeVar. He's had 5 years in the league. He's been healthy twice, okay? He's hurt every year, and he had one incredible year that he has not come close to duplicating. And if you dig into those numbers in that near MVP year, he was like nearly record-setting in the red zone and on 3rd down. And he has not come close to sniffing those numbers. It was a total outlier. I think it's safe to say Carson Wentz is an injury-prone quarterback who just had one fluky year, and I don't know what his future holds, and it's probably not a good thing.
Even if you came to that conclusion based off of what you've seen, that 1 year that he did have success is the guy that brought him into Indianapolis. That's for one. For two, Indianapolis is one of the most completely built teams in the National Football League. They are a studly group. They got a running attack. They have receivers. They have an offensive front. They have a great defense. You're not asking Carson Wentz to be a world beater in Indianapolis. You're actually putting him in a situation to have that same type of success he had the first go-around with Reich. So, to me, the reason why I said a Phillip Rivers, and it sounds outlandish, and it sounds outlandish to me as well, the reason why I can't be a Nick Foles, the reason why I can't be a Garoppolo, the reason why I can't be a legitimate, serious quarterback that can be your starting quarterback, and this is why it's such a difficult position for the Colts to be in, is because you don't want to destroy a situation that you have not even had the opportunity to see if it's going to work with Carson Wentz. This, to me, it ends it, right? It's a potential, it's a game ender. You know, he's going to jump. Like, it's not going to end well if you bring in a guy that Carson Wentz, before he even gets started, has to contend with. Now, it's not about him competing against a guy that they would bring in, a Garoppolo or a Mariota. It's not the competing part for Wentz. It's the reckoning. It's the reckoning part of it. Yeah, I pulled that from Tombstone. I like it. But sometimes it is the reckoning that plays the entirety of what the situation is. If you bring in a guy that looks to be possibly a permanent solution, then now the media is going to jump on that all year. Now the players are going to jump on that all year. You have now put Carson Wentz in the same situation that you just took him away from. I don't think that that's the right decision, whatever the decision is, which I think is more towards what you're saying, actually, J-Mac, and just not doing anything, using next man up mentality, bring that guy in. But here's the problem. You do have a competitive early part of your season. This is a longer season. You can say it's an advantage that you have a longer season because it gives Carson Wentz more of an opportunity to get healthy and come back and still impact the year. Or you look at it and you say, most conventional wisdom, you have to win the first 3 games out of 4. So it's like you break the season down into quarters. Now, with it being an extra game, I don't know how you want to do it. But you generally say first 4 games, we got to win 3 out of the 4. Next set of games, you got to win 3 out of the 4. That's like how we break seasons down in the league. And the coaches will tell you, like, 1 game at a time, but break it down into games of 4. If you're going to give up those first 3 or 4 in the season, you're already fighting from behind. And I don't really care how good of a team you are. If you climb into a hole that deep, you spend more often trying to climb out of the hole versus trying to thrive in the season. And it creates a much different environment and a much different situation that the Colts would be facing had they been able to win 3 out of those 4 games. So try to get somebody who can get you to those 3 games. And even if you split it, right, even if you go 2 out of the 4, that's still a win if you can get out of the first 4 games of the season having the opportunity to possibly get your starting quarterback back healthy.
Look, I tend to agree with you guys that, look, this is about Carson Wentz this year. You have to find out what you have in him. Now, if he's out the 12 weeks, that's a whole different story. But they're hoping they can get him back soon, and you can see what he's about. The problem is that the rest of the team is built to win now. This is a playoff team. This is a team that's thinking about winning. And I laughed at your Phillip Rivers suggestion, LeVar, and I don't know. I doubt he's in NFL shape.
Probably not.
But it does make sense in that, like you said, if you bring him in, Carson Wentz doesn't view him as a threat.
Correct.
Right? You know he's not
correct.
the quarterback of the future. It still is your team.
That's correct.
Right? And that could help him. But Wentz, look, I have 2 concerns about Wentz. Obviously his health, because J-Mac is right. He has had health issues since he was in college. And a lot of times, even this foot surgery, they're saying the injury looks like it was something that happened to him in high school. When he was at North Dakota State, they found a stress fracture that dated back to his adolescence. It doesn't seem like he physically has the makeup to stay healthy in the NFL. So that is a major concern of mine. And then 2, he's a guy that in that MVP or near MVP season, he relied a lot on his athleticism, right? It wasn't necessarily his decision-making. He is a guy that relies on instinct, athleticism, tries to make the home run play or the big play. And is he going to be able to, like, now he's going to have to rely on his decision-making, his smarts, his intangibles. And I think he's lacking in the intangibles. I think that was part of the problem in Philadelphia. He couldn't galvanize the locker room. He lost the locker room. So he's got to develop those things. If he doesn't have that athleticism, I'm concerned about it.
Yeah, just to put a button on this, Jacob Eason, the guy who is the backup, was a top 10 recruit in high school, went to Georgia, then went to Washington. So he's got some pedigree, 6'5", big dude. I think he can handle it.
No mercy.
After an early playoff exit to the champion Bucs, the Heat made some big moves in free agency, acquiring Kyle Lowry in a sign and trade and agreeing to a long-term extension with Jimmy Butler. Miami also re-signed Duncan Robinson on a 5-year deal and grabbed P.J. Tucker from the Bucs. Chris, will the Heat be able to contend with the Nets and Bucs in the East?
No. Look, I like the move. It reminds me of trying to build it like the Detroit Pistons did in the early 2000s with Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace. That team ended up winning the championship, right? No superstars, a lot of really good players, stars, and they did win one ring. That seems to be the blueprint that Miami's following. So I like the move. Look, it's a great organization. They're always going to be professional. Their guys are going to play hard. They're going to, compete. They're going to be gritty. They shoot the ball pretty well. They're going to be well coached with Eric Spoelstra. But they just don't have enough talent to beat a healthy Brooklyn team. All right, they don't. And now the healthy part is key, though. Because Brooklyn, we know that's one of the main concerns. James Harden's been an Iron Man, but Kevin Durant has been hurt on occasion, and Kyrie Irving is downright injury prone. All right, and so if Brooklyn's not healthy, then I do like Milwaukee better than Miami. All right, and Miami, we can talk about the wall they put up in the bubble and they shut Giannis down. They tried to do that same wall in the playoffs this year, and Milwaukee swept them. And 3 of the 4 games were blowouts. All right, so Milwaukee and Brooklyn are a notch above Miami. But I do move Miami right there in 3rd in the East. All right, Philadelphia is not mentally tough. That's one thing. Secondly, what are they going to do with Ben Simmons? They've got to turn Ben Simmons into a star. All right, they need to be trying. I get it that he's saying he wants to stay in Washington. They need to be trying to pry Bradley Beal away from the Wizards or trying to pry Damian Lillard away from Portland. You got to tell Portland, look, he's leaving. Whether it's this year or next year, the year after, he ain't staying. All right? So give him to us and build around Ben Simmons. They've got to try to revamp that team because as it stands right now, even with the great Joel Embiid, I think Philadelphia is 4th. So I've got Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Miami, Philadelphia, and then Atlanta and Boston. And so I think Miami helped itself. I like the P.J. Tucker addition as well. That also takes a little bit of something away from Milwaukee. But I would still put the Bucs and the Nets ahead of Miami.
Well, Portis just signed back with the Milwaukee Bucks, and that was a big deal in itself. Listen, every once in a while at night, you can see the sun and the moon out at the same exact time. It doesn't happen often. It's kind of like this show with me and you, Broussard. I can't believe we're agreeing as much as we are. Because I totally agree. And you're talking about that Pistons team that had the Wallace boys, right? Like the 2 Wallaces, had Tayshaun Prince, all of those guys. Interesting. I got all of their tennis shoes, game-worn shoes from that season, actually, in my collection of memorabilia. A little personal dip there. But here's the thing about that team and why this Miami team doesn't become a competitor, a more competitive team in terms of winning the East and getting to the finals, and why they don't compare to that Pistons team. When you talk about the length of that Pistons team and then the role players being the role players, we talked about how Russ doesn't move without the ball real well. You know who is probably arguably the greatest to move without the ball? Rip Hamilton. You know, you want to talk about guys who played their position and knew their role. Down below, you had a guy by Ben Wallace, the name of Ben Wallace, who was by all means not the biggest, strongest, tallest guy, but truly embraced being a warrior, getting rebounds and blocking shots, defending the cup. Then you look at Raj, and when you think about Rasheed Wallace, what do we all think? We think about, oh, how the game has evolved and this, that, and the other. And there's certain players that were before their time, people. Rasheed Wallace was before his time. You're talking about a legit big man that could actually play big man basketball but could play small man basketball as well. His skill level was tremendously high. So, and then Tayshaun Prince was like that swing dude that could do everything, right? Like he could play defense, he could give you offense, he could slash to the rim, he could give you big shots when you needed them, and then you had a fearless leader in Chauncey Billups. You do not have that type of makeup with this Miami Heat team. Well coached, yes. Talent, yes. Leadership with Butler, yes. Young budding star with Hero kind of maybe hit a little of a plateau this season, yes. My whole idea of looking at this Miami Heat team is, did they get better by adding Lowry and re-signing guys? Yes, they got better. But good enough to contend and compete in the East to be in the final game before the finals? I don't think that they improved that much. And granted, they did play in the finals in the bubble year. I get that. But we saw where they were deficient. It all showed up when they got into a real series with a real team that had what? The same type of length and the same type of elements that you saw with that Detroit Pistons team. So, to me, I think that they improved their team, but they're missing a few more pieces if they want to be contending in the East from here on out.
Okay, all right. It took about an hour for us to find real disagreement, so I think I'm ready to go, because you guys are wrong. Yes, the Nets are better. The Nets are the class in the East. But the Miami Heat, with these moves, have passed the Milwaukee Bucks. The Heat are now the second-best team in the East, and it's undeniable. First of all, I'm not going back to this Pistons stuff. I could care less about Rasheed Wallace. What I do care about is what happened 2 years ago in the bubble, okay? In the bubble, Eric Spoelstra coached Budenholzer into a body bag, okay? What did Budenholzer do? He went to his GM. Well, we need help. So they upped the ante with Drew Holiday, a great signing, and Drew Holiday put them over the top. They face off again, and as Broussard said, they swept them. Three games were ugly beatdowns. What does Miami do? You know, we talked about chess yesterday, okay? Yeah. Miami, it's their turn. They go and grab Kyle Lowry. So now Miami has a strong defensive team. I would argue they have the best defensive team in the league, okay? They have all-NBA guard at Kyle Lowry defensively. They have Jimmy Butler, who's been an all-NBA defensive player 9 out of his 11 years in the league. And they have one of the best defensive centers in the league, Bam Adebayo. So at all 3 levels, they're set defensively. And just another fun stat for you. Last 5 years, no player has taken more charges in the league than Kyle Lowry. Now, I know he's 35. He's not as great as he was 3-4 years ago. He's still an elite defender. You can't move him in the post because he's got such a big butt. He's like a fire hydrant. He gets down there. You can't post him up. Then they steal P.J. Tucker. You're trying to tell me, guys, that the Bucs lose their toughest starter in P.J. Tucker. He was the tough guy on that team. He got in Kevin Durant's grill during the entire series. Yep. You take away the toughness, you move it to Miami. He's the new Udonis Haslem in Miami. You got a bench with Tyler Hero. And listen, don't be too down on him. He had a rough sophomore year. It happens. He's Instagram famous now. He's going on stage with rappers, dating an Instagram model. He'll refocus this year. And I, again, go back to the coaching. Eric Spoelstra, significant advantage over Budenholzer. No doubt about it. Miami Heat are the second best team in the East. I don't even particularly think it's close. The Bucs, I just want to tell you guys, 2 guys at the Olympics. They are worn down. They are going to struggle next year. Heat are number 2 in the East, Broussard. You can't touch any of that, but you could try.
First of all, J-Mac, there was pixie dust in that bubble. There were flying leprechauns in that bubble. I have Disney, Mickey Mouse. I don't know what was going on in that bubble.
No pixie dust in these playoffs when everybody got hurt.
Finals. All right, that team was not that good. All right, so stop it with that.
They took 2 games off the Lakers,
I brought up the Pistons. Here's the reasons I brought up the Pistons of 2004. Not that this Heat team is as good. They're not. But that Pistons team is one of 2 teams in the last, 42 years to win an NBA championship without a superstar. The Seattle Supersonics in 1979 and the Detroit Pistons in 2004. That is it. You need a superstar to win a title. J-Mac, tell me, who's the superstar on Miami?
Jimmy Butler is a superstar. He's a top 15 player in the NBA. That's inarguable.
Since when?
I would
Since
debate
every
that.
year he's been in the league the last 3 years?
He is not a superstar. He's a star.
He's a star.
He is a star. He's not a superstar.
I don't want to go 10 minutes arguing who is a superstar.
You just said that because you had to come up with somebody. You just said that because you had to come up with somebody. There's no superstar in Miami.
Did you watch the finals, or are you thinking this pixie dust thing? He won at LeBron and Anthony Davis, who went toe-to-toe with them for 6 games. Jimmy Butler was incredible. He is a star in this league. They just gave him max money.
He's a star.
Superstar.
He is a superstar.
I'll give you that. A star.
You going to rebut it?
Jimmy Butler is a superstar, period. Next question.
They don't have a superstar. And Milwaukee does. And his name is Giannis, and he's playing right now like he's the best player in the world, and they're not going to be able to handle him. Bam Adebayo is too small. All right, Giannis better play like he did in the playoffs for the rest of the regular season. All right, play inside, dominate inside. When he does that, Bam Adebayo can't see him. All right, so no, Milwaukee is better than Miami. And Philadelphia, depending on what they do with Ben Simmons, they could be better than Miami because it's about talent in this league. And Philadelphia could have more talent if they get another star for Ben Simmons. But certainly Milwaukee and Brooklyn are better than Miami.
Depending on what the Celtics do, they could be better than Miami. Let's not forget about them.
Wow.
I mean, let's be honest.
No respect for
Tatum. Hey, Tatum snapped out last night in that game. Tatum is a superstar too, a budding superstar, I'd say.
Wow,
you know,
Broussard, unbelievable.
No mercy.
This week on Fox, the NFL is back. Catch the Steelers as they face the Cowboys in the Hall of Fame game. All the action is on Fox and the Fox Sports app, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Tua Tagovailoa has impressed his coach so far in training camp. While Brian Flores admitted it's early, he did say his second-year QB has looked solid and applauded his technique and mechanics. Tua won't have Ryan Fitzpatrick splitting reps with him anymore this year, so there's a lot more pressure to see if he is indeed Miami's franchise quarterback. LeVar, do you expect Tua to take the next step at quarterback this season?
You know, I do. And listen, when you look at certain schools and you see certain position players come out of them, they don't have much success. You know, 2 schools that pop out at you that you wonder, can those guys at a certain position have the success is Alabama and Ohio State. They have some really, really awesome quarterbacks in school when they come out, but they don't seem to pan out once they get to the pros. Tua is a more feasible, positive conclusion of a prospect and of a player. I think that the coaching staff, the familiarity of that, having a full offseason to prepare, getting further away from the injury that has taken place, and having more familiarity with a playbook and more confidence in what he can bring to the table. You know, last year was a year of adversity for him. He had to fight through being benched. He had to fight through, you know, them teetering the line of, are they a good team or are they a bad team? He's a winner. He's a winner. He comes from good stock. He's got good guys. They're showing highlights here. I love Gesicki at the tight end's position. When you have a really, really good receiving tight end, someone who can do it in a multi-dimensional facet, I think that Gesicki is one of those type of guys that can transition into being in the same conversations as the top guys like Kittle and other guys out there. And then you look at them adding Waddle, someone that he's familiar with from the college level on that outside. They have a good running attack. It's a loaded team on top of that. This Miami team, talent-wise, Flores in the front office of Miami has done an excellent job of constructing a team that can win. I think this is the year that not only Tua takes a big step forward, I look for the Miami Dolphins to take a very definitive step forward and being a much more competitive team this year as well.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think their defense is strong. We all know that. And then offensively, people aren't understanding what Tua had to go through. He was coming off that gruesome hip injury, all right, then didn't have much of an offseason or a preseason. And then he's battling with Ryan Fitzpatrick, whatever you want to call him, all right? And he had no receiving core either. And now you give him Will Fuller. You mentioned the tight end, Jalen Waddle, his boy from Alabama. I think he's going to be much more comfortable in the offense this year. And look, everybody is not going to be the quarterback to come in right away and work magic in the NFL. We've seen Kyler Murray come in and start right away, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow and others. But that's not going to be every single quarterback. Because a guy may not light up the league in his first year doesn't mean he can't play. Now, I'm not saying I think Tua is going to be an all-pro, but I do think he will take a jump this season. And you're right, I think Miami as a whole will take a jump. He's got a great coaching staff. I think they're going to have that team playing complementary football on both sides of the ball. And with the new receiving core and then all of the offseason training that he's had versus what the preparation he had last year, the lack thereof, I think he is going to take a step forward and have a very good season.
I listen closely, guys. I listen
closely.
I hear a lot of excuse making for Tua, and the fact of the matter is he was the worst first-round quarterback last year. Justin Herbert had to deal with the same truncated offseason. Oh, and guess what? He wasn't even starting. They started Tyrod Taylor. Justin Herbert tossed into the fire and put up historically great rookie numbers. Joe Burrow going to an awful franchise with a pretty terrible head coach and put up great numbers and looked like a stud. And then you have Tua, who basically vomited all over himself several times, had to get pulled for the Harvard kid Fitzpatrick. And guys, I know you're bullish on this offseason, but LeVar, they dumped their offensive coordinator, Chan Gailey, who's like 67 years old, and they bring in a couple new guys, and you start digging around, and you're like, wait a sec. These guys historically have done a lot of two tight end heavy sets. Do they not trust Tua? Are they going to be running the football a lot this year? It goes counter because, as Chris said, they added Will Fuller, and that's a smart move. You get a rookie quarterback on the rookie deal. You go and add a good receiver. Everybody does that. Kyler Murray got it. Josh Allen got it in Buffalo. And I like the Will Fuller thing, once he comes back from the suspension. The Jalen Waddle acquisition is nice. But I start to wonder, LeVar, you look at the history of Alabama quarterbacks. They're playing with superstar receivers. And then Tua gets to the league, and he's throwing Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. And, okay, guys, I know you got to gas up the Penn State tight end. That's fine. He was on my fantasy team. He's very good.
He's good.
I just have a lot more questions than answers with Miami. And I will put a button on it this way. Brian Flores now on his third offensive coordinator in 3 years. They kind of lucked into a 10-6 year last year. They choke in the season finale against Buffalo's backups and miss the playoffs. I do think we'll see a little regression. They had some special teams luck. They had a lot of turnover luck. I believe they led the NFL in turnover margin. Everything just kind of felt lucky last year for them. I am going to go counter. I think the Dolphins missed the playoffs. Smells like 7-10 to me. And I'll close with this, LeVar.
Okay.
There's a reason Miami was doing more than kicking the tires on Deshaun Watson this offseason. There's a reason why when Deshaun Watson came down to Miami for whatever boxing match there was, the Dolphins brass was in the building. A lot of chatter about Deshaun Watson and Miami. I'm curious what happens if Tua stinks up the joint again this year.
What's interesting is how you measure success. Sure, Herbert got Rookie of the Year. Wonderful. Sure, Joe Burrow had a better career, a better season. Statistically, wonderful. That's success. You can measure success that way. It's interesting. Joe Burrow, for his troubles, got part of a team that won 4 games last year, and a jacked up knee from that season. That's one. Justin Herbert, their team went 7-9, and he got a new head coach. Oh yeah, new coaching staff in LA for that Rookie of the Year performance that he put up. So both had successful campaigns. I'll let that sink in.
What are you saying?
I'll pause and let that
what are you
sink
trying
in.
to say?
We can sit here and try to say the personal success that one has is measurable by saying that he's better than the next guy that didn't have that. But Tua has over a 500 in wins total as a starter in Miami, coming off of what you call excuses. I call it just life. You had to overcome an injury. You had to overcome a pandemic. I mean, hello? Joe Burrow is going to have to overcome an injury. Are we going to use an excuse for him? All right, so the idea of it is when I think about where Tua is right now and the opportunity that he has, with the setup that he has, with the stability that he has. Come on. If I'm picking Miami versus looking at what Joe Burrow has in Cincinnati or what's taking place here in L.A. with Justin Herbert, he's not familiar with this new coach. He's going to have to get familiar and see what he can do. Was this first year a lightning flash, lightning in a bottle year for Herbert? Does he cool off? Is he better? I don't know. He has players. This is a well-constructed team that the Chargers have as well. But can he do it again? Can Joe Burrow come off of this knee injury and be what he was before the knee injury and make this Bengals team a more relevant team? So to me, when I say and I state very clearly that Tua's success is based upon the success that I believe that the Miami Dolphins team is going to have as a whole, I truly mean that. Just because you're not a Pro Bowl player or an All-Pro doesn't mean you can't have a tremendous campaign as a starter. We've seen Tom Brady and various other quarterbacks have successful years, and even I believe they won a Super Bowl one year or more, or appearances where Tom Brady wasn't an All-Pro or a Pro Bowler. So with that being said, the idea of measuring a guy's success based off of if personally he's an All-Pro or a Pro Bowl guy, I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think Tua will make this Miami Dolphins team a better team this year. I do think he takes a very big step, a larger step, in being considered a legit quarterback that starts and gives his team chances to win in every game. I think he takes a definitive step this year.
J-Mac, you have to understand the difference between an excuse and an explanation. All right? A hip injury is an explanation. Yes. It just is. All right? It's not an excuse. It's an explanation that a guy has to deal with. All right? So that is not an excuse. And then you throw out the Deshaun Watson thing. Of course they went after Deshaun Watson. I mean, and I get the controversy and the problems he's created for himself now, but this was before that. Why wouldn't you go after Deshaun Watson, even if you like Tua? All right, in San Francisco, they like Jimmy Garoppolo, but they still went after Trey Lance. All right, Deshaun Watson's a top 5 quarterback in the league. So the fact that they went after him when they have a team, especially with the additions at receiver, when they have a team that's built to win right now, a team that wants to make the playoffs and do some damage right now, why wouldn't you go after Deshaun Watson, who, by the way, is still young himself? Why wouldn't you go after him? That doesn't mean you hate Tua. Doesn't mean you think Tua can't play, but you see the opportunity to get a guy who is a proven all-pro player over a guy who may be able to blossom into that. I think it was the right move to try to get Watson if he was available.
So how could Tua be good if you're instantly trying to get Deshaun Watson? Remember, there was a tank for
Didn't
Tua
I just
thing,
say?
Chris. They tried to tank for this guy. They saw him for half a season, and they're like, ooh, I don't think so. You don't see the Chargers trying to back up the brakes and go get Deshaun Watson, do you? Look at the third down passing numbers from Justin Herbert versus Tua. It's like, this guy's going to be a star, and what do we have here? And I'm not, I know it sounds like I'm taking a shot at Tua. He had an average to below average year. He was a great deep ball thrower.
It sounds like it. You are. Own it.
I'm looking at the stats, which are facts, Chris. I'm dealing in reality. And the numbers for Tua in his rookie year were not good, okay? Justin Herbert was excellent. Joe Burrow was very good. Tua struggled. Now, he's a good deep ball thrower. I think the Will Fuller addition is good.
Herbert wasn't even starting.
But if you look at where they had Tua throwing the ball, guys, they didn't have him throwing out patterns. Now, is that because they don't trust him to make those patterns? And you have to wonder if getting pulled. LeVar, you would know this playing in the NFL. What's going on in Tua's head when he stinks up the joint and they pull him for Fitzpatrick? And then they do it again, and then they start looking at Deshaun Watson. Like, that's all happening in your first, 10 months in the league. I just wonder mentally if Tua's going to come back. I like the optimism.
I mean,
he's a great story.
The guy took the man's job at halftime of the national championship game. He's been on the other side of that, by the way, J-Mac.
That's a good point.
His pedigree is well stated, is well represented. I don't look at it from that perspective. I look at Tua and I say to myself, is this a guy that can do it at the level. They said he might be undersized. His arm strength could be in question. A lot of things that you heard them say about him. There was a guy by the name of, y'all want to say it with me? Drew Brees.
Oh,
Need I say?
Drew Brees was a second-round pick. No, you can't do that.
There was a guy by the name of Drew Brees that they had the same criticisms about. Then he gets a serious injury and doesn't even, some of y'all part-timers might not even realize that Drew Brees was playing for the Chargers before he went to the Saints. Some of y'all are such part-timers, you might not even know that. But Drew Brees started off with the San Diego Chargers. He built his Hall of Fame career in New Orleans with the New Orleans Saints. A lot of the same things that I've heard said about Tua were said about one Drew Brees. I go back to college with Drew Brees. I saw the brilliance of Drew Brees in college, and a lot of people didn't know if that type of football, his style of play with his size, would translate into the NFL. I think it all comes down to the supporting cast, meaning is your coaching staff what they need to be? Is your running game what it needs to be? Is your offensive line what it needs to be? Is your defense what it needs to be? And ultimately, that's what it comes down to for any quarterback or any player that comes into this league. Go back to New England. Tom Brady had all of those elements in play and had the opportunity to sit and watch and learn and do those things. Tua will be fine. Now, I don't go as far as to say he's going to be the MVP of the league, but he will be fine, and he will take strong steps
Drew
forward.
Brees could carry a team. Tua could not carry Miami if it had a handle.
We don't know yet.
No mercy.
Reports out of San Francisco indicate that rookie quarterback Trey Lance is rolling, despite the 49ers publicly backing Jimmy G as the team's current starter. Still, Kyle Shanahan was vague about the veteran's long-term job security ahead of the 3rd overall pick, saying, quote, "I truly don't know what's going to happen." Oh, boy. LeVar, does the rookie give the 49ers the better chance to win the Super Bowl than Jimmy G does?
I don't know that answer to answer definitively if Trey Lance is the guy to take them to the Super Bowl. What I can definitively answer and say is, well, Jimmy Garoppolo has taken the 49ers to the Super Bowl. What I can say is that defensive front that was so dominant and was a part of this San Francisco team going to the Super Bowl, they're back healthy. There are answers that you can put out there that, well, they're logical answers. But I don't know, especially looking at where San Francisco is right now. You know, I watched a team with Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan as the OC in Washington take a young freshman quarterback. Yeah, I call rookies freshmen. He took a young freshman quarterback in RG3, Robert Griffin III, and had one of the most amazing years that a rookie quarterback has really seemingly ever had. I mean, it was a game changer, what we witnessed and watched with Washington and what they were able to do. There is a mastery in the way that the Shanahans command an offense and how the scheme works. So do I think that it's possible? I don't know how Trey Lance compares to an RG3. I don't know how he fits into this latest iteration of what Kyle Shanahan's offense will present. You're going to have a healthy Debo Sanders this year. You're going to get a healthy Kittle back into the mix. You're going to have some really, really good moments with this offense. So it could be tomato, if it's really, you get this whole thing clicking the way that you need to get it clicking. And if Trey Lance is someone who is picking up the scheme and understands where the windows of opportunity exist in the passing game and knows how to pre-snap read what a defense is doing so that he can go to the proper run play, which we heard Alan Faneca on this very show say to us yesterday, when having success at that young of an age, Ben, it was more so guys like Alan Faneca, those guys, Jerome Bettis stepping up, Hines Ward, looking at it and saying, here's where the play is. Let's check to this play. Taking some of that pressure off of the inexperience of Ben Roethlisberger to help him have that success that he was able to have to get to an AFC championship round. So if he has that type of support and respect from the other players on the San Francisco 49ers team, this could be a situation where Trey takes over the starting role and has an amazing football year as a rookie. Or it could be, we know what Jimmy Garoppolo is. We have our guys back healthy, and we know his DNA and his pedigree can get us all the way to the Super Bowl if he's healthy. Do we ride that out? I think that this creates, really, in a lot of ways, a win-win situation for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers.
Well, the question wasn't, will Trey Lance be a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo? That one I will answer yes. The question was, does Trey Lance have a better chance of going forward in the future? But the question was, does Trey Lance have a better chance to lead them to the Super Bowl than Jimmy G? And we talked about it off camera. No rookie has ever won a Super Bowl. No rookie quarterback has ever won a Super Bowl. So I don't even know if one has gone to the Super Bowl, Chris. I'm not even sure a rookie has ever gone to the Super Bowl. That would be an interesting trivia question. There you go.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So let alone won it, all right? So I'm going to go with Jimmy G. Look, Jimmy G, we know his deficiencies, all right? And I'm reading the same stories you guys are reading about how great Trey Lance looks, how he allows Kyle Shanahan to open up his playbook in a way that Jimmy G doesn't, right? He's more mobile. He can run the football, all of that stuff. He's picking everything up. And I think the kid's going to be good eventually. But he's played one football game in, the last year and a half, 2 years? And that was in the Missouri Valley Conference. Now we expect him to step into the NFL and command his team right away? I think look, Jimmy G, unfortunately, probably is going to get hurt at some point this year. I hate to put it out there like that. I hope I'm wrong. But if it happens, that's when they'll move Trey Lance in. But I think Jimmy G will start the season. And if he's healthy, he gives them the best chance to reach the Super Bowl. The dude is a winner. All right, he's 22-8 in San Francisco. In those same 4 years, when he's been out, that very same team that he's taken to 22-8 is 7-27 with Kyle Shanahan. All right, so there's something about him where he galvanizes a team and leads them to victories. I get it. When they went to the Super Bowl, they ran the ball a ton. Okay, I'm not saying he's Joe Montana, but he can win football games, and they really were 7-8 minutes away from already winning the Super Bowl. So I got to start Jimmy G. This could be an Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes situation. And I'm not saying Trey Lance will be Pat Mahomes, but where you start the veteran who you know is good but not great for 1 year, and then you turn the reins over to the youngster, and the rest is history.
This is an insane experiment by the 49ers. I know Kyle Shanahan's a genius. John Lynch knows drafting. I don't know what they're doing with Trey Lance. This makes no sense to me. The guy wasn't even 21 when they drafted him. He's one of these one-year wonders who had an incredible year of college, and he looks the part, so let's draft him. I'm sure Trey Lance is talented, but this idea that he could start week 1 for the Niners and lead them to the Super Bowl is pure insanity. Okay, it's just not happening. First of all, the last rookie quarterback to even get to a conference championship game, I believe, was Mark Sanchez with my Jets. And he was a total game manager with an awesome defense and a great running game. And, you know, the 49ers kind of have some of that. But Mark Sanchez played way more games in college than Trey Lance. Trey Lance, by the way, threw 318 passes in college. That is the fewest of a first-round quarterback that's been drafted in 40 years. The guy has no experience. Broussard just laid it out. He sat out last season, played 1 game, you know, basically a showcase game for him, and I think he had 2 turnovers. But listen, I'm concerned for the Niners because they have a really good team, LeVar. This is a team that, again, like you said, was basically 1 Garoppolo overthrow away from winning the Super Bowl. They led by 10
one defensive
with like
stance.
8. Yeah, they led by 10 with 8 minutes left, and they gagged the game away, and now they're like, oh, we got to dump Jimmy Garoppolo. It's very confusing to me. I'm not out on Trey Lance because I don't know him, but I'm certainly not putting him in an Alex Smith, Mahomes type analogy that Broussard just used.
The answer to the trivia question is no rookie has ever started in a Super Bowl. So there you have that. Yes, I pulled that up. Technology does give you the ability to do that real quick these days. You know, still I say records are made to be broken. Rules are made to be broken. Who would have ever thought that you could say that you would win more than Joe Montana? Joe Montana was the gold standard of how you won as a quarterback in this league. And look, lo and behold, here comes Tom Brady, and he totally destroys it and rewrites how that is written and reported. So when I look at opportunities, I think it ultimately comes down to the belief of the coaching staff and what they see and what they feel. And it also comes down to the experience, where you brought up the inexperience of Trey Lance, but if the experience of the guys around him can shine, then that's where you're going to see the opportunity for Trey to have success. But I do think that the logical answer is you got to go with Jimmy G.
I smell a quarterback controversy in San Francisco.
No mercy.
LeBron and AD are getting some help from familiar faces next season. Dwight Howard is returning to LA for his 3rd stint with the purple and gold after spending last year in Philly. The Lakers also came to deals with Trevor Ariza, Kent Bazemore, and Wade Ellington, all former Lakers. Chris, do you like LeBron's team bringing their old favorites back?
I mean, look, it always helps when you're familiar with playing with LeBron. You know, it's an adjustment playing with him, so the fact that they've already done it, that helps. Obviously, they added some shooting. It's not great shooting. Wayne Ellington, Bazemore, they shot it well last year. Trevor Ariza, we know he's a 3-and-D guy, but he's older. He's 36 years old. And now the LeBron 36. So, these are old guys. I do like the Dwight Howard addition. They missed him this year. They missed his banging. They missed his muscle. So they're going to be big, and they're gonna be able to bully some teams. So we'll see if they go that route. But they do still need more shooting. And I hate the loss of Alex Caruso. I think that is big.
I mean, you have big guys there already, right? So this becomes a much bigger team. They are going to play bully basketball. They're going to beat you up. By not adding a whole bunch of shooting that we continue to talk about, you have a slasher, you have 2 finishers, and they can create their own shots and the 3, with AD, LeBron, and Russ. So to me, I think these are great moves because you're basically saying if you don't make your threes and you're going to try to beat us with 3-point shooting, you're only going to get 1 shot. You're only going to get 1 shot. There's not going to be second chance opportunities. We watched our Olympic team struggle early on last evening because they couldn't get second chance opportunities. They were getting out-rebounded horribly, right? So to me, I think that they're building the same makings of a team that can out-rebound you and make it hard for you to make plays.
I like what LeBron's LA Fossils did yesterday. They picked up a lot of old guys. We're going to hear a lot of late-night TV jokes and diapers and Metamucil and all that silly stuff. But the bottom line is the Lakers are still the best team in the West. That's undeniable. You can't even argue that. Not even Broussard could try to fight me on that.
No mercy.
Free agency is underway. We got some notable guards already making their decisions. Lonzo to the Bulls, Kyle Lowry to Miami, Chris Paul staying in Phoenix, Mike Conley sticking with Utah. Broussard, which free agency move is going to have the biggest impact next season?
I'm going to go with Miami, what they did in adding Kyle Lowry and P.J. Tucker, because, they'll jump from the 6th seed. I think they're now the 3rd best team in the East behind Brooklyn and Milwaukee. So they make a nice jump. Not going to win the East, but they jump up there right below the Kingpins.
It's easily the non-move of CP3 staying in Phoenix. Let's be clear here. That gives them a clear opportunity to try and mimic what they did this past season.
I'm going with Alex Caruso to the Chicago Bulls. They finally get somebody who will try to play any defense. Caruso, Lonzo, Zach LaVine, I think the Bulls are the 5th seed in the East. I know Chris Broussard's head just exploded, but I love that addition. He's a great defensive guard.
All right. Let's get out of here, man.
5th seed.
Yeah, I love the Bulls. Hey, 2 days we survived.
J-Mac.
Back for more tomorrow. I know you guys can't wait. I'm going to beat up on Broussard a little bit more, just a little bit more.